We are back on Business Live. Let's do our big story for tonight. And coffee production was at its peak in the mid-60s. But as of 2016, the country produced virtually nothing, even though the commodity has the potential of raking billions of revenue for the nation. Little or no attention has been paid to the sector by successive governments. The closest we got to was lip services. Just last week, we had another promise by government, and government is saying that they have committed some 50 million cedis towards coffee production. Is this another political talk? Edward Kariwe is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, and he joins me in the studio. Thanks so much for your time. But before we do that, we actually want to look at the state of Ghana's coffee production when it comes to statistics and where we stand. Let's do that, and then when we come back, we have the discussion.
Brazilians, coffee beans grow by the billions, so they've got to find those extra cups to fill. They've got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil. You date a girl and find out later she smells like a percolator. Her perfume was made right on the grill. They've got an awful lot of coffee in Brazil. No tea, or tomato juice, you see, no potato juice.
Well, all the coffees are settling in Brazil and not in Ghana. So we are back in the studio for the discussion. Thanks so much once again. As of 2016, Ghana produced virtually nothing. Why is it so?
Well, let me say good evening to our colleagues who are watching, particularly the General Agricultural Workers Union and their farmers. The fact here is that it has to do with demand and supply. You know, when there's no demand, when there's global slump in demand, then of course farmers will not see the need to grow the coffee. So there must be demand first, and when there's demand, that will drive production. So it tells you that in 2016, there was virtually no demand, so there was no motivation. Is it
because we have not produced enough to actually even market? So it's not that there's demand. I mean, there's export for, we can export for money. So are you talking about domestic demand or the demand on the international market?
Well, domestic demand is very low. Okay. How many people take coffee in Ghana? Our weather is hot to start with, and then there are also some certain perceptions about coffee, that it gives caffeine, it has this, gives high blood pressure, whether it's true or not. All those things also affect domestic consumption. And you trust me that most of the primary products we produce are mainly for the export. Cocoa itself, the local consumption is very low. So what about coffee then? So, and again, you should know that farmers have a choice. Right. If they see that the price of cocoa is going up, why should they produce?
I was coming
coffee?
to that. Don't you think that we are over-dependent on cocoa when coffee actually can rake in a lot? Let's talk about Brazil. They made about $5.4 billion as of 2016. Vietnam also got some 1.2 billion as of 2018. Ethiopia is actually the continent's largest producer. So are we not losing out? And how much are we actually losing out?
Well, when you say we are losing out, it's just to say that we are not taking advantage of that. But of course, we have been stuck to only one crop, that is cocoa. And then all these years, we've been depending on cocoa so much. In the past, governments have tried to diversify the economy to oil palm, rubber, and so many other areas. But unfortunately, diversification of coffee has not been successful. The statistics show that we have not been able to do much for a long time on coffee.
Right. So government is saying that they have committed some 50 million cedis towards the production of coffee. This is not the first time you're hearing this. We've had a lot of political talks from politicians, successive governments. How differently should we be treating the coffee production sector in Ghana? And the coming in of this money, how will it help change the game?
Well, I cannot speak for government, but I can say that we only have to take the commitment as it is now. We hope that government will actually make available these 50 million cedis, and then it will also actually use it for the purpose that it is intended.
What will it take to change the coffee industry? What can we do to actually whip up interest in the first place and also get more people into the production of coffee?
One, farmers must be assured that it will not be a one-day wonder, it will not be a 9-day wonder. Government will continue to support them to produce it. Just like today, we know that cocoa, once you go into cocoa production, you have a sustainable input supply, and then you also have a guaranteed market. So that has to be extended to the coffee farmer to be assured that come the next 5 years, 10 years, once I go into it, I will continue to have market and I will continue to have my input supply sustainable. Right.
Before I let you go, one will even ask, we're talking about coffee and how much we can make from coffee actually, but is the climate that we have here, the regions, the soil types that we have, is it conducive for coffee production?
Coffee production is even cheaper than producing cocoa, and then it has a similar growing season like cocoa. It takes 18 months for coffee to mature. When it comes to cocoa, when you start a cocoa farm, it takes 3 to 4 years. So you can see that it is even cheaper. Gestation period is shorter. So it is just a question of making sure that we convince people to produce coffee. We also convince them that they will have sustained inputs and the market supply. Once they have that, people will go into it. All
right, thank you very much. Edward Kariwe is the General Secretary of the General Agricultural Workers Union, and we've been talking about coffee production and where Ghana stands when it comes to coffee production. We're going for a quick commercial break. When we come back, Business Live returns.
In Brazil, a whole lot of coffee in Brazil.
All right, interesting conversation on coffee production in Ghana. Do you take coffee?
Sometimes. I'm not a coffee person, but there's great potential. Right. I did a story about a lady who was doing the production here in Ghana, and she said there's great potential. So let's take it seriously. Let's hope that government really commits that money and we see that come to fruition. No play on words. My name is Daryl Carl. Thanks for watching tonight.
And my name is Sandra Isenmakame. For more news, do log on to myjoyonline.com/business.